As a rooted deeply and forward-looking community, we hope that you will be blessed by this message. For more information, visit rechurchza.com.
So I was asked to speak to you today about frustration and anger. We'll get there. And then Bern said to me, no, I'm just teasing you, Bern. I'm just teasing you. Okay, so I'm not going to be all over the place, and we're not going to be forever, but there's some things that I've been aware of. So, Leandri, why don't you put up that picture of that tree? The one, actually not the one in the felt. Not that one, we'll get to that one. Okay, so what stands out for you in that picture? Sorry, it's not the best quality. It was like okay. What stands out to you? This is not rhetorical, Michael speaking into the universe, nobody responds, please session this morning. Please don't, you can speak back, I will not be offended, there is no right and wrong. I will embarrass you if necessary, don't worry. I'll live up to your expectations. What do you notice? So the first thing you notice is the path. Okay, so it's not the fact that the path doesn't have anything growing on it. So I wake up on Monday morning after last Sunday, and we've gone through all of these relational things, which I found challenging. I don't know what you found them, but I found some of them pretty challenging. And I wake up and, okay, so we've got to make a deal first. If I speak too fast and you don't tell me, I'm assuming I'm normal. Okay, anybody can say, whoa, slow down. Who's going to do it? I need some, okay, beloof. Okay, so as ek stadig genoeg. Okay. So, I wake up on this Monday morning, and I see this picture clear as daylight in my head. It wasn't exactly like this, but this was a fair representation. And we did all those relational things on the Sunday morning, and I have a number of whether I like it or not, I have some broken relationships. That's what it is. That's the current snapshot. I'm sure you do too. Oh, none of you. What a bargain. I don't know. I can stop. I have one taker. Anybody else? Nobody's broken relationships. Yes, you're awesome. I've obviously heard wrong. Okay, it doesn't matter. I've got 4 more topics. But I see this picture. And I hear God saying to me, okay, I'm saying to him, what's that? He says, well, that's a snapshot of your heart. It had more parts than that, by the way. And I said, okay. And he said, and you do realize that you don't get to keep any seed on your path till later than lunch if you're lucky. Okay, it sucks. He says, and the reality is those paths of yours are things that you know, you believe, you understand, you can teach, you've helped other people with, and you've no doubt it's not going to work for you. Come on, if everything we learned about broken relationships last week and how to resolve them worked for all of us, none of us would have broken relationships. None of us. But what I realized for me, it was a case of going to God, even if I believe and do and da-da-da-da-da, there's no guarantee I'm ever going to get to step 2 or step 3 because I don't just get to choose that. Everybody gets to choose. So the fact that it's biblical, the fact that it's his way of doing it, does not mean someone else is going to choose to engage you on level 3. Which is bringing in other people to go, okay, we obviously can't resolve this ourselves. Let's really get help. No guarantee. And he says, that's fine, you can keep this, but my suggestion to you is you start plowing. Because what you don't plow can't have anything growing on it. And I work in agriculture, and the stupidest thing is to plow to that path, up, down, up, down, up, up, down, up, and then go around, and then up, down, up, down, up, down, and if you've got stuff that's crisscrossing, you just never get to plow it. Nothing grows there. And we come, and my experience has been, is when you're coming to a sitting like this and someone's talking, your mind is looking for things to agree with, that you currently regard as right. Okay? We're not always open-minded. Okay, especially me, let's start with me. But we've got to be seekers of truth. And truth will plow over your common thinking. And that common thinking is picked up from our parents. It's the empty ways of life that we handed down. It's often in our DNA from whenever. It's often in what we've learned at varsity and have agreed to. And I remember seeing this with my daughter specifically. So when she came out of varsity, and she did flippin' well. I'm not to say flippin'. Twice. Double fine. Sorry. Michelle did well, but it wasn't the point. When she started, I love universities. You like go and you sit through these first day sessions. They go, we've got an 85% job market success. And you're going, yeah, whatever. And then you get to the end of it and they're going, we've got an 85% job market success, just not in what you studied. Okay, so that was an experience that we had with, well, everybody that did it for us. And she found herself writing for Google. So she would populate Google with articles. But the first two were absolutely rubbish. They were terrible. And I was reading through these things and I'm going, what is your problem? And I realized she was writing a sentence for a mark. Because that's how she was being taught at varsity. You write information for marks. And so you can't just write rubbish, you've got to articulate it properly. But yes, it makes for bad reading. It is unbelievably user-unfriendly, and it's actually really boring. And only when she started twigging that I've changed environments was she able to change the way that she started writing, because it wasn't for marks, it was for money. Different world. And I've realized that what we often do is that we come in and we're looking to tick boxes for marks of right and wrong, right and wrong, right and wrong, good and evil, good and bad, that's great. And then we come with a slightly different angle. And you're going, nah, no flipping way. I said it 3 times. Okay. No way. I'm not taking from that angle because I learned it like this. But Peter speaks about an interesting concept. He speaks about present truth. So Jesus is truth. He is the way, he's the truth, and the life. It's an individual. It's like even the spirit of prophecy is the testimony of Christ about anything. So he has opinions about absolutely everything. You just got to ask him. And you've got to be willing to say, okay, maybe what I do know needs to be traded. And we've got to learn to become really good traders. And a good trader will always buy into a better investment. You'll have a stable base, but it'll be looking for opportunity. And as sons, we've got to be going to God and saying, okay, the mind of Christ is an expansive, brilliant reality into everything that I've ever dreamt about. You know everything, about everything, forever. Every level, every nuance, every angle. How can I broaden who I am so that I've got the mind of Christ? Or at least a broader perspective of yours on the stuff that I'm interested in. So that brought me to the place of saying, okay, God, so how do I really plow? And there are a number of scriptures, and you can go and look for them yourselves because you all got a Bible app on your telephone. And it's not hard. So I'm not going to underestimate your intelligence. But one of them is by praise. And I'm saying, okay, so that's lekker, but so I can play the guitar a little bit and wara wara. But it's difficult to do that. And I said to him, but that's, how do I, and he said, you know what, so praise is, now I've got to check my crib notes, to acknowledge the goodness of God always in spite of circumstance. To acknowledge the goodness of God in spite of circumstance is plowing. Is going, I know what my world looks like. I know, we all know our own worlds, come on. It says no one but the spirit of man knows what's going on the inside of him. It's just what it is. But in spite of that, I get to choose. And it's not, and sometimes you do have to fake it till you make it. Sometimes there's no emotion, there's no massive joy, there's no instant relief, it doesn't always work like. Sometimes it's a case of going, okay, and I admire, this is something I admire about farmers. They'll get into their tractor at 8 kilometers an hour with a blooming plow behind them, and they'll just go until it's finished. They don't stop. And it's boring, because it's all automated. It's like totally boring. I promise you, I've sat with them before, it is boring. At 3 in the morning, at 3 degrees outside, inside a tractor, it is boring. And you're tired and it's night number 17 because you wanted to buy another farm because you didn't want to pay tax. Come on, that's what farmers work for. They work for profit so they can buy more land, so that they can plow longer, so they can have a bigger tractor, just like the rest of us. But it's boring. And sometimes the praise thing is like coming into the space where you say to God, I'm going to face this thing and I'm just going to do it. And become stubborn about it. Of going, I will declare your goodness. I can't experience it. I don't see it particularly. Nothing in my world has particularly changed. And I don't care. Because truth is truth. And we develop a stubbornness, a tenacity, what's it? I suppose there's some polite words too for it. But every now and again, you just got to be, okay, that's Afrikaans and it's rude. And you all guessed it. We've got to be stubborn around these things. Samson, when he picked up a donkey's jawbone and he killed 600 Philistines, it was by stubbornness. It wasn't by, oh dear, my shoulder's feeling slightly sore, my tinnitus is playing up and I'm not really listening. Actually, I'm hungry. Just like, okay, here goes, boys. These things are going to die. I don't care how long it takes, you will die. And it takes a stubbornness, it takes a tenacity, it takes a maturity, it takes a focus of just going, I don't care, it's going to happen. Because actually we do hear from God. And actually we do have an idea. And sometimes we've just got to push until. And how long is until? I don't know. Sometimes it's incredibly quick. I mean, here, for me, this thing, as soon as I turned my heart, I didn't even do much of what I'm telling you now on Monday morning. By Monday evening, I was experiencing a totally different mindset in terms of accessing Scripture. It was like going, okay, how did this happen? It was at 3 in the morning, which I wasn't particularly happy about, but nonetheless. But the rest was, I was satisfied. I was so chuffed that it had shifted to that degree so quickly. I'm going, okay, this is worth it. I wonder if it's going to last. It did. Dad was awake every morning at 3 this week. It wasn't fun, but it's fine. So what am I trying to say to you? One of the things that I do is I measure soil and I fix soil. But the way that we start is we start with a snapshot. And a snapshot is quite simply, we go out in the wind on Tuesday afternoon when it's 3 degrees in Carolina and you get home and you don't feel well, but not the point. And you go and you just do it. And there's a specific time of the year to do it. So it's when guys have finished harvesting, you literally take a snapshot and say, okay, what have we got and what haven't we got? And it's a test and you send it off and they send it back and then you've got a picture. And then it's what do you do with the picture? And many times what we do in our own lives is we take a snapshot of the good or the bad days, depending on what we feel like doing, and we get stuck on the snapshot. But that's just a now picture. It doesn't have to be like that in 2 weeks' time. It doesn't have to be like that in 5 minutes. You can change it. You can change some things we can change like this, by choice. It's attitude. Often it's attitude. Often it's whatever. But snapshots are very, very important. And a snapshot brings us to the perception. Often what happens out of that snapshot is so what I do is I look at those things and we measure all kinds of stuff and work out the specific ratios and the specific things that influence other stuff. And it's very, very simple and beautifully complex. It's like simple, you can look, but when you, and this is maturity. It's like understanding the complexities of God and start saying, okay, I don't just measure the surface of what I'm seeing. I look into it and I interpret and I work with the Holy Spirit and I say to him, okay, teach me. I cannot tell you how many times in my world I say to God, okay, teach me. Just teach me. I don't get it. I'm not going to pretend. I can't seem to find it in books. If you don't teach me, you will have a deaf son, and it will not be my fault. I don't know if you do the same. And I think I actually irritate him to the point of going, I must know. I have to know. I'm going to irritate you till you talk to me. I am. And then things happen. And suddenly you meet a person that you don't know at all, a random person. And they put down some random piece of information that just links so many concepts. Just because you've been irritating towards God. Okay, praat met my. Praat met my. I'm not a wife, but I can wife with God. Okay, that was maybe a bad joke. I even talk detail. I say to him, give me detail. I told you. Really, give me detail. I want to understand. And the reality that I'm starting to realize more and more and more is when we come here and you look at people that, when God gives gifts to the body, it's to equip. It's not so that you can become like them. It's so that you've got the equipment to apply in your world. The goal is not to do the stuff here. The goal is to come here and be exposed and then to go out. And your primary responsibility in this earth is developing a Holy Spirit relationship. We say to him, what did we agree to? What am I responsible? And what are we going to do? And then you take the equipment and you use it. And you risk. And you have faith. And you do stuff. And you change the world. And you irritate God because you're going back again and again and again saying, I have to do this. I want to understand. Teach me how. But if you're going to come and think that this is the playground, geez, you're going to be irritated. Yeah, we make coffee, play a bit of guitar, say hello at the door, and then we sort of run out of functions. Come on, there's only so much space to play in this place. But you've got a whole world that God's going, okay, so does your piece of the world look like heaven? Does your industry and what you play in look like the way I think about it? Are your relationships, you hear what I'm saying? It's not about here. Here is a place of equipping. So Leandri, please put up that tree that you had up first. That is a fascinating tree. It's a guy in somewhere in the world, and it's not that clear, I apologize. But on that tree are 40 different kinds of stone fruit. 40 different kinds. There's a rootstock, and he has taken 40 different kinds of trees and grafted them into that tree, and they all bear fruit. So why would this picture here be any different? Okay, so there's a magic around grafting. If I plant a tree from seed, there's no guarantee it's going to be like the parent stock, because it's got two parents. And it's cross-pollinated. Everything cross-pollinates in nature. Most things cross-pollinate. Okay? So it's taken an apple tree, absolutely lovely, not so, and you get when you're going, hier sieht es lag. But as soon as you graft, and you've got a strong rootstock, you're guaranteed of nutrition, and you're guaranteed that the fruit will be the same as the graft that you're putting in. Guaranteed. The other thing is a tree from seed can take up to 11 years to bear fruit. A grafted tree is usually, depending on the size of the rootstock, and the size of the graft can be in year 1. It can bear some fruit, and by year 3 it's flat out. Year 5 it's optimal. That's how quickly it happens. And you're guaranteed that the fruit is what you were looking for. So when you look at the analogy of Jesus, and he says, okay, because he says, so you need to abide in me. And I found a key last week in John 6 somewhere, where he says, if you eat of my body and drink of my blood, you will abide in me. I'm going, brilliant, that's simple, I can do that. It's not difficult. It's a great way to start. It's just saying, I'm going to do communion because that's how I abide in you. I'm putting everything of you inside of me. I'm taking that replica of the DNA of your transfigured brilliance into my being, and I'm creating a picture for my DNA to replicate against. I'm going to say that again. When you eat of his body, you're taking in his complete DNA into yours, and you're creating the picture of your DNA to replicate against. So what starts happening? You start looking like him. You start thinking like him. You start speaking a bit more like him. And it's gradual. Sometimes it's this incredible acceleration, and other times it's just maintenance. It's almost like being in marriage. At times there is certain things that are absolutely phenomenal, and sometimes it's maintenance. Both are necessary. Got to do both. And that's life. Some stuff is, if we just live for the highs, we might feel low. Because there's maintenance stuff with God of just going, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to grow these things. And if you specifically look like in nature, there's stuff that doesn't happen all the time. There are specific seasons. You can't, so some of the things that we do use in what I do is we use biostimulants and brilliant stuff. One of them is like a liposome. So you take a big oil molecule, smash it around until it becomes tiny, enough to go straight into a plant's leaf, which is one of the toughest barriers in the universe. And we can then remediate, or we can feed, or we can stimulate, or whatever. But if you overstimulate in the wrong season, that tree's, for want of a better word, dear mekaar. Properly dear mekaar. And what we often do with God is we go back and say, I need this. And he's going, no, you don't. You need to just do the maintenance stuff for the next couple of weeks. Just hang. I've had times in my life where things have changed too rapidly. And I've gone back to God and said, what are we going to do now? I said, nothing, you're 2 months ahead. I'm going, oh, how convenient. And he's serious. He's like, serious. You said you're just going to hang around him I'm saying for 2 months, yep. Because you've got out of sync with certain of the things that I'm planning that need to be in sync with you. You're out of sync. It's simple as that. Was I obedient? Yes, just I was preeminent. I was gassed and not all started for a change. But and then and if you don't understand those things, you just get disappointed. Because it's not you that's out of space, it's other things that haven't matured to the place where you can be totally functional. You've got what it takes already. The rest needs to catch up. And sometimes that takes longer than you wish. It really does. And then you've got to just tread water and wait until. But the bottom line is this, is that if you access, or if you preempt and get the timing wrong, even in some of the things that we do, the result is not good long term. Because you've got to get that everything back into space. It's even like, I'm trying to think of something logical. I can't think of something logical right now. Sorry. Told you it was just a talk. I don't have crib notes for everything. So trust God. Trust Him with timing. Even with David. David's like going, okay, so God, when we're going to club these guys? God says, yes, you are. He says, so when should we do it? He said, you have to wait for the mulberry trees to rustle. You've got to wait. Sometimes you just got to wait. And then often in that waiting period, the things that we start out of frustration mean that when this thing comes along, we've got all of these little things we've got to take care of that were of our own making, that really are irritating, because we just didn't wait. So even like last Friday, I'm like saying to God, I was not particularly busy. It's winter. Stuff I do slows down in winter. I'm saying to Him, so if I'm inclined to find myself really obedient for a change, and doing exactly what you want, and being exactly the space you want me to be this morning, where do you want me? He says, I want you to go to the zoo with Peter. Okay, it's Friday morning, God. It's a work day that He's not particularly responsible, and so I went to the zoo, and it was a good morning, full stop. But I'm walking there, I'm saying to Him, why am I here? And I find this funny little herb garden. And as I'm walking around in this herb garden, I realize somebody in my garden has been totally brilliant about what they've planted. And the weakest link is me, because I don't know what to do with this stuff. So I'm going to change that and move that and chuck that away and da-da-da. Until you walk into the space where you literally are taking photos of the boards there and realizing at least half of the stuff you already own. You just don't know what to do with it. So sometimes God will lead you into these spaces, and then I'm going, okay, brilliant. Thank you. I still don't really know what to do with it, but it's okay. At least I have a few more clues, and I don't have to buy so many plants. But you need to trust Him that you'll walk into those kind of spaces at inopportune moments that you think you're being irresponsible, and He'll open a whole avenue of thinking for you, a whole world that you had an idea of, but He's going, okay, let me color in your picture a little bit, just a little bit, and you can explore as deep as what you choose. But for many of you, that's I think where you're at, is you need a trip to the zoo or elsewhere, and just go and have a look and allow God to give you a perspective of what you can do with the technology that's already in your hearts. God's downloaded a lot of technology into our hearts that we're not sure what to do with. And by technology, I mean heaven ideas that change practicalities on earth. That's technology. Come on, not cell phones are technology. What do they change? 20 years ago, or 30 years ago, however many years ago it was now, you had 6 batteries and a charger and a brick, and you were lucky if you found a cell phone tower. But the technology brought us to a space where communication is it's simple. It's so simple. A friend of mine drove around Botswana the other day. His goal was literally to go along all of the edges as far as what he could, as close to the border as possible. Not once did he run out of reception. Not once. And you're going, okay, if it can be in Botswana, it can be in London too, occasionally. But that's a technology. So what else has God prepared for us as a technology that He would give first to His children? But because often we don't have our hearts and our minds open, we have no expectation of Him giving us stuff like that. Clever ideas, witty inventions. The Spirit of wisdom says has 2 entities that dwell with her. Witty inventions and prudence. So one of the things I'm pondering about at the moment is there was about 200 years ago, maybe a bit more, there was a revival in Scotland in the Hebrides. And it was a spiritual thing, and a couple of things happened. Number one is the mines nearly shut down because the miners stopped swearing at the ponies, and the ponies wouldn't respond. So it's like change of vocabulary, useless mining industry. So I don't really know how that, maybe they just got new ponies. But the second thing that happened is for about 80 years after that, Scotland was the primary exporter of technology in the world, from penicillin to steam trains. They changed the world with technology. And I'm saying to God, okay, and if you look back, and this is an interesting study, if you look back at where He poured out His Spirit in specific places over history, and you then link the technology or the change or the revolution that happens in those countries because of what He did over the next 100-odd years, it's worthwhile going to have a squiz. I haven't found a book with it all in, so you've got to go and look for it, but you can look, it's fine. It is there, I promise you, history's there, and we've got to go back to history. You've got to say, okay, so how did you move? What was the pattern? What were the principles? What were people up to? How did it change? What can work for me? And then you plow your path or plant a tree. But the secret of this tree, actually, is that a lot of these different kinds of plants cross-pollinate, and they bear fruit at different times, and none of them change into each other. And that's the key here, is whatever you come in, it's your unique reality. And it's often as churches are like, or organizations, or even communities are like buying a house in an estate, where everything is uniquely identical. I have the most unique, by far the most unique home in this estate, which looks just like yours. And that's measuring off each other's rights and wrongs. Of going, and I remember the day, and this is many years ago, where I said to the Lord, I don't want to read books written by Christians anymore. And he said, why not? I said, because the principles are all the same, but there's never a sequence. He's going, yep, you're right. And he said, but the reason there's not a sequence is that everybody's got a unique combination to how their potential and their hearts unlock. And if you're trying to pattern it off everybody else's, you'll never unlock your full potential. Never. The principles stay the same. When they become relevant in your life is a different ballgame. And because we want to be patterned many times, especially with this desire to be right, to do things the right way doesn't always lead to life. And it definitely doesn't lead back to God in his presence. I mean, the thing that got Adam and Eve kicked out of the garden was the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. So many times that you can even equate that to just the way of doing things right and wrong. Whereas actually the tree of life was what he said you should focus on. So you look for life first. What leads to greater joy? What leads to greater intimacy? What leads to greater friendship? What leads to greater access to God and who he is as a person? What leads to these kind of things? Focus on the life. And out of that life, the principles fall into place because they're important. But if you come from the other route, it doesn't create life. It creates rules. And rules means, and the greatest challenge with this is many, many years ago, the Lord said to me, he said, you know what the challenge with true success is? I'm going, no, but I'm sure you want to tell me. I'm convinced that you would like to inform me of this. He said, success can be a liar because it makes you assume you've done everything right. You might be doing 1% right. The picture was maybe 99% bigger, but you'll never see it because you've drawn the line at success. So you've got to go back to him and say, okay, so even when I do get stuff right, talk to me. Because I might have got it slightly right. So yeah. Okay, so the equipping thing is that what I was listening to Alexander last week also, he said a very, very specific thing. He said, without the Holy Spirit, you cannot be fully yourself. And that's just true. But we're one spirit with God. If any man's in Christ, he's one spirit with God. And it's funny what I really wanted to do. I had a bottle of Oros that I wanted to put into a large vase, and then I was going to wet the floor and do all kinds of stuff with a hose pipe, but I refrained. It's called self-control. And I didn't want to clean up afterwards, let's be honest with each other. But we come with a box of, when we come to Christ, we come with this humanity dynamic of ours, of things that we've learned, experienced, gone through, da-da-da-da-da. And it's like a bottle of Oros. But when you come into Christ, if anyone's in Christ, you've got this river on the inside that if we allow it to flow, will flush that until the only thing you see is clear. But we've got to allow it to flow. And what I found in my life is that often, maybe just, I wanted to use the word maturity, but I'm not sure that it's the right word. But sometimes you go through things and then we're quite capable of getting up to a whole lot of nonsense, or maybe it's just me. And we have these experiences, and God allows us to do all kinds of, he allows us to step into spaces that we want to explore. He doesn't restrict. And there are times that we just kick the door down because we want to. Or maybe it's just me, again. But we can re-inoculate the Oros bottle. And then you've got it, and often because you've let the river flow for so many times, you're going, no, it's just, I'm not going to do that again. Isn't there something else? Can't I try? But the reality of the river of life inside of you is it's meant to be the thing that causes the mixture to change. So when we find the mixture in us, it's not to go and fix it. Because I mean, none of you, I've never said to God in my life, leave me alone for this week, I'm just going to sort out a few things. And I'll be back to chat to you when I'm done. And then he goes, okay, see you next week. But he never leaves. Instead of going, okay, God, this is my reality. I have to let this flow. instead of waiting and going, I shouldn't, it's out of sync. It's the reality of embracing. So when you come to the word sin, specifically sin, it's got an interesting meaning. It means, the Greek word is hamartia, and I'm not Greek, so I'm probably saying it wrong. I might say it wrong on purpose. Hamartia, hamartia. Ha meaning negative, or to be without. And meros, to have a portion or to have a form. So in other words, sin is to be without your allotted portion. You feel like you haven't got what it takes. Or to be disorientated, or to have a distorted thinking around something, or to be bankrupt in your identity. The opposite is metamorpho, which means to be with form, to have an appropriate shape to fit the space, an appropriate reality. So it's to go back to God, and sin often. So now we get back to the frustration and the anger. When you face these things, and your identity or the reality on the inside of you says you haven't got what it takes, what does it cause? Frustration. If you live around that frustration for long enough, instead of going back and trading into the identity of Christ, saying, I've given you everything pertaining to life and godliness, then it will lead to anger. Usually there's a whole lot of manipulation and scheming and conniving and trick and pushing and doing all the wicked things to other people in between, because this is right. But you don't feel like you've got it. And the trade today, if we're going to trade on anything, is this thing in John 8. Where straight after that of where Jesus explains this thing, or where bottom line is where he says, he's the light of the world. And what the light of the world will do is it'll show you that pathway that says to you, I don't trust this, because every time I go down here, I find myself bankrupt, or just too poor, or just not able to do what I need to do. But it'll cause you to, as you trade into that place of saying, in you I have fullness of joy. In you I have a full portion. In you I have a totally new identity. In you I have everything pertaining to life. I have everything for godliness. It's already deposited in me as a gift. I've just got to get rid of the negative pathways in my mind that will not allow me to go there. And that happens 1,000 billion times in your life. Okay, maybe a bit more. But it does, because every time it's a choice. That's the thing that never goes away from mankind. It what makes us like God is choice. And we can choose quick, or we can choose slow, or we can choose not at all, or we can just embrace completely. And the question many times that I find for people, and for myself, is like, God, you are really good. We don't believe that God is not good. But are you going to be good to me in this space? Or am I just going to have to work harder? And as we embrace that, that's praise. That is what plows over our negative minds. As we take a snapshot and saying, okay, this is real. The snapshot says, you do not have faith for this. I'm going, yep, you are right. I do not have faith for this. But you do. And I'm trading into my identity in you. Because you are as we are in this world, as he is in this world, so are we. And as you trade into that space of going, I'm going to change my experience around this. I'm going to choose to push until life starts changing. Sometimes very gradually. Sometimes very rapidly. We don't know which one of the tumblers we've got that's just going to unlock a lot of stuff. It's like playing snakes and ladders backwards. You land on a snake, you go straight up. I said snake on purpose, because often we think the negative experiences are the things that are just going to drag us down. But sometimes when you walk into that space, you start saying, okay, so you are my shepherd, I'm not here by accident, here we go. That snake will drag you straight up. The negative reality will trigger the truth inside of you of going, that's not who I am. That's not who you are. This is not how it's going to work. So much of our reality is created by everything that we come into agreement with. You say you can't? You're right. You're right. Why? Because you said so. You chose your portion of truth, or lack thereof. But when you start coming into him saying, Jesus, okay, so what's your opinion about this? And I can do all things through Christ. But my experience has been, I can do all things that I agree with him that I can do through him. And until I agree, often nothing happens. Absolutely diddly squat happens except frustration. So the reality also is, if we go to Romans 8, we have been given a playground. And that playground was subjected to incredible frustration and not being presented as what it truly is for our benefit. So creation was subjected to frustration, not by its... I'll read it to you. For creation was subjected to futility or frustration, not willingly, but because of him who subjected it in hope, because creation itself also will be delivered from the bondage of corruption into the glorious freedom or liberty of the children of God. And we know that the whole of creation groans and labors with birth pangs until now, not only that we also, who have the first fruit of the spirits, we ourselves groan within ourselves, eagerly awaiting for the adoption and the redemption of our body. But the bottom line is I read the wrong sentence. So it says, for if I consider the sufferings at this present time are not worthy to be compared with the glory which shall be revealed in us, for the earnest expectation of creation eagerly awaits for the revealing of the sons of God. That's meant to happen in this age. There to be a gradual revealing of the sons of God. And the way it works is we take responsibility for the scrolls that were written about us before the foundations of the earth. God gave us stuff to do. Didn't just come here to go suckle. Gave us things to do. And as we come into agreement with that, you unlock everything that he's put inside of you that will cause you to be brilliant. And nature and creation in your sphere of responsibility will respond to you. It's when you fill in everybody else's spheres, or try and be in this building only, that frustration comes into yourself, because it says we also groan within ourselves. I remember the day I was riding in the car and God says, you do realize that you can't just sit on the edge of this thing and pretend not to be part of this creation. Look at your own frustration, Michael, you Wallace. Deal with it. Because to the degree that you set your own frustration, you redeem your own frustration within you, you can be really effective. But we've got to face it. We've got to face that place of going, God, I feel like I don't have a portion. I don't have what it takes. And he's going, no. That's the concept of sin. The concept of righteousness is you have everything it takes to do what you need to do. Just start listening to your sphere. Find your space. Find your calling. Find your functionality. Be part of the community. Draw from the resources, but bear your own fruit. And please don't try and be like the guy talking now. God help us all. Serious. I don't need too many Michaels in this world. Seriously not. Or too many, who am I going to pick on? I won't pick on anyone. But we're unique, and we have unique functions, and we have a unique expression of Christ, and we have a unique expression of creatively, the creativity of who we are in him, of coming forth and going, you have answers for these things. I can draw on that creativity in the way that I've been wired, with specific ways of doing it. But if I'm not looking for the right and the wrong way to do it, if I'm not looking for only the ways that I was taught. Come on, you didn't go to school to learn. We went to learn to write, not to learn to write somebody else's story. So I'm listening to a guy on sometime in the week, and he uses YouTube and AI to draw an article out of YouTube every day, sitting and publish on his website. My first thought is, yes, you're a thief. Yes, a scallum individu. And then he uses a virtual assistant to test whether it's accurate. And you're going, oh, God help us. We need some genuine intelligence. But the point I'm trying to make with that thing is that all of these tools, there's all of the stuff that we can use, but it still takes interacting with God with intelligence and building a database of knowledge that actually becomes useful so that you can do stuff. Because faith without is, okay? So we've got to do stuff. Serious, and not just church stuff. We've got to do stuff. We've got to build brilliant businesses. We've got to influence governance. We've got to change education. We've got to talk to people and heal them. We've got to bring the picture, your perspective that God's given you of heaven, because it differs. It's this incredibly broad topic, incredibly diverse. Your perspective that you're meant to bring, I can't. And I don't want to. I'm a bit lazy. If you want the truth, I really don't want to. It's in you, it's unique, and it's in you. And as it mirrors with heaven, literally the king gets this opportunity to lay his head down. Foxes have holes, birds have nests, but the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head. Head always speaks of governance. Even as we do this, as every part grows up into the fullness of the knowledge of Christ and starts developing and putting down its unique part as each part adds the part that it's responsible for, the body grows up into completion. Not as everybody tries to think exactly the same, do exactly the same, be exactly the same, speak the same, dress the same, God help us all. We're not meant to, we're not a uniformed army. We're a family of sons saying, what will make my dad happy? And then you go back to him and say, check how flippin' brilliant, I'm not going to use that word, check how brilliant I was. I did this stuff for you today. And he's going, yeah, see, do you want to try something else? How about something more difficult? Because I bet you can do that too. And that's our dad. Like going, come on, I know who you are. I know what I've put inside of you. I've given you everything you need. Let's just unravel it and unwrap it and unteacher it and unparent it and all the things that all the rights and wrongs of people that drew lines that we agreed with, said you can only do this. Says who? Says who? So dream about heaven on earth. Dream about walking into a space where letters talks to you. I'm not supposed to tell you. Well, the other day I'm standing there, I'm saying to God, I want to know what what totally redeemed lettuce looks like in this farm. And suddenly I'm seeing a totally different picture. And it's nothing like it looks like now. Unfrustrated lettuce does not look just green. Anything that's just green is already tending towards death. Just a thought. I'm not going to explain to you what it looks like. You can ask him yourself. He might or might not tell you. But you've got things in your world that you've seen like totally differently, where you're looking and saying, it doesn't have to work like that. And the complexities of the mind of Christ and finding out and interacting with one another and having this manifold wisdom. It's never meant to be one-dimensional. Manifold has to have multiple dimensions. We're even multiple-dimensional beings. Come on, you've got 3 dimensions minimum. Spirit, soul, body. Get over it. But how do we take our spirit and manifest it? How do we take what's in heaven? How do we take the perfection of the knowledge and the person of Christ in us and go, I was listening to a song the other day that says, I can use somebody. And I hear God saying, why don't you change the words to, you can use my body? It's a good tune. It's not, some guys in the world write really good tunes. Let's not even pretend. But you start going, okay, so every time that you can use my body. Try it. I dare you to. I take it for a test drive this week. I dare you. I just double dare you. Just you can use my body for a test drive this week and see what happens. I dare you. It's risky, but I dare you. Burn. That was the prayer of Mary. She basically said to God, you can use my body. It had profound effects in history. Somebody going, you can use my body. Because what else do we offer? You are it. You just got to offer it. Okay, that's their first 3 sentences. Can't tease it. Leandre, sit daar in 'n prentjies op asseblief. I want to talk to you about snapshots, and then I promise we're going to do communion, we're going to transact with God, and we're going home for lunch. I think. These pictures, they look much better on my phone. Okay, so that's just, you can just run through them, work one at a time. Yes, it was at Hermanus, and yes, I was doing beekeeping, and yes, I was less frustrated. Go back again, run them again. Exactly the same space. 3 minutes apart every shot. Exactly the same space. So which one's the right one? Which one's a true reflection of what that place is? You can decide, I don't care. It's your choice. There is no right and wrong in this, but there was exactly the same space. And the point I'm trying to make is that when we go to God with a snapshot and you start saying, okay, and we acknowledge it, because what you've got to start with, you've got to acknowledge and saying, this is what it is. You don't know what changes in your world when he changes the color. You don't know. You do not know. Only thing predictable about that is it will change.
Thank you for taking the time to listen, and we hope you've been blessed. For more information, visit rechurchza.com.